Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us wherever you're joining us from. Today's webinar, we're going to look at some topics around hitting your prospects at exactly the right moment when they're ready to switch. So look at sort of learning how to identify when decision makers are most receptive to new MSP partnerships. We're going to discover the art of tailoring your messages to resonate with decision makers' unique pain points and needs. Hopefully uncover some strategies to position your MSP as the top choice amidst a very competitive market. We're going to gain an understanding of the behavioral patterns and signals that indicate a readiness to transition. Paul will explain what that means later. And we hopefully by the end of this, you'll understand how to establish credibility and trust from the outset of the decision-making process. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Paul Green from Paul Green's MSP Marketing.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ben. That was a round of applause for a fantastic introduction there. And it's great to be here. We have got so many good things that we're going to talk about in the next 45, 50, 60 minutes or so. I'm going to give a caveat. And the one caveat I'm going to give is it's something that MSPs in the UK will understand. There's a specific word I'm about to say, and all UK MSPs will go, oh, okay, I understand. And then I'll explain it to all other MSPs, the rest of the world. The word is OpenReach. That's two words, OpenReach problems. I'm awaiting a second engineering visit from OpenReach for unspecified internet problems. And the reason I tell you this is if I vanish halfway through this webinar, I will be back. And Ben has got his joke book ready to tell you some jokes. But basically, I've got some kind of...
I've opted
anyway.
for Nigel's price package profit thing, and we'll read a couple of chapters of that if we need to.
That would just be amazing because it is a very funny book. For those of you around the world that don't understand what OpenReach is, it's the UK's basically there's one company in the UK that maintains all the telecoms infrastructure, and any MSP who has ever put in any kind of telecoms order and then 6 weeks later has wondered why they still haven't got the telecoms that they ordered for their client will understand that the word OpenReach is not a pleasant word. So fingers crossed everything is good for the next 60 minutes. So let me start by telling you a little bit about, oh, look at that, already we've got problems. I just have to go off screen for a second and press a button. I made a mistake and I'm back now. And if I press this button, yay, it worked. So I love it when a plan goes together. This is the downside, Ben, of having a very posh studio setup when your computer's the other side of the room to where you're filming. So this is what we're going to talk about over the next hour or so. We're going to talk about the big marketing problems that you have. Most MSPs who do a bit of marketing or are generally dissatisfied with their marketing have these four problems. I'm going to tell you what the four problems are and how the four of them work together to give you a massive headache. In fact, it explains why it's so hard actually getting new clients for your MSP. It's not just you. Everyone has exactly the same problems. I'm going to tell you why. Then we're going to look at a strategy that I've been pulling together since 2016 and kind of perfecting. And we're going to just look at the helicopter view of it today because no one really likes the word strategy. So we're going to make it fun and we're going to look at it without getting too bogged down in detail. But it's a simple 3-step strategy to help you reach people at the exact moment or just before the exact moment they are nearly ready, willing and able to buy from a new MSP. And then we are going to do a ton of questions at the end as well. So as we're going through, I'm not quite sure if there's like a question box at the bottom or a chat, doesn't matter which. As you go through, I say something and you...
I was going to say, you've got either option. If you want to dump anything in the chat, feel free. Otherwise, I'll be keeping an eye on the Q&A. I will probably interrupt Paul mid-flow with any questions, and we'll try and answer them on the fly.
Perfect. That's an even better way of doing it. So let's do that. So thank you, Ben. Let's get started with me telling you who I am and why you should listen to me. So as Ben said, I'm an MSP marketing expert. I'm the host of Paul Green's MSP Marketing Podcast, which is, we believe, the world's most listened to podcast about marketing for MSPs. That's a niche and a niche and a niche there. But we had around about 140,000 downloads last year, which is really cool. And you can find that wherever you get your podcasts. I run a business called the MSP Marketing Edge, and I work with 700 MSPs all around the world, helping them with their marketing. And I actually started my career as a newspaper reporter and then a radio presenter, and got fed up of that after a decade and started my first business back in 2016. No, I didn't start it in 2005. In 2016, I sold it. And that was when I first discovered what an MSP was, because I had previously been working in the healthcare sector here in the UK, and I had a 5-year non-compete, which was ridiculously long, but it made me go and look for new sectors. And I remembered working with some IT support people back at the beginning of my career. And I discovered that in the years I'd been away, IT support had become managed services, and it's fun and it's amazing. And in fact, now it's the best business model that you could possibly have, because of course you have insanely good retention and you have all that lovely monthly recurring revenue, which just comes in month after month after month. That insane retention, by the way, is actually created and caused by one of the marketing problems that we're going to talk about. It's a marketing problem that makes it difficult for you to win new clients, but also makes it easy for you to retain your existing clients. It's a double-edged sword. We'll talk about that in a second. So I've been in this world the MSP world, since 2016, and every day I'm talking to MSPs or doing webinars, and I'm a pretty good sponge for marketing stuff. I see my job as not telling you everything about marketing. It's breaking it down into what's the simplest possible way for you to do marketing. So if you're here and you're already pretty good at marketing and you're expecting very, very advanced stuff, that's not what we're going to deliver on this webinar. We're going to keep it very, very simple. It's still powerful, but we're going to keep it very, very simple, easy for you to understand. And my goal at the end of this is that you're really motivated to actually go and take action to apply some improvements to your marketing areas. And let's start by asking this question. And my beautiful assistant, Ben, is now going to fire up a poll. Here it comes. With all luck, with any piece of luck.
We're certainly going to try. You just remember where the polls
Okay.
are. I found them. How good is your MSP marketing?
Hooray.
Launched. There we go.
So we've just launched that poll. How good is your MSP at marketing? If you just want to take a couple of seconds just to fill that in. And Ben, how would you consider yourself?
I would say it's a very scientific scoring here. We've got terrible, okay, good, and great. And already
I wrote those options.
Yeah, I haven't. Before I even share this, I can tell you it's leaning very much towards the terrible end.
Yes.
That makes so much sense. Like the biggest challenge in my own MSP, I ran my MSP for about 10 years and sold it a couple of years ago, for those that don't know. And lead generation was just the hardest part. In fact, the main reason I ended up selling the business was just because it wasn't growing the way I wanted it to be. It was just such a challenge finding new clients. The concept of MSP specific marketing agencies didn't really exist a few years ago. I think that's quite a new thing. I think the amount of time and money I spent on trying to teach marketing agencies what we actually did was quite painful, really. And then the other problem was, because I didn't really understand marketing in the way I do now, it was a very scattergun approach. It was very, okay, well, we're going to put our budget into this month and that next month and that. And it was just this, well, SEO is not working, paid ads isn't working, and this isn't working. And damn right, doing each of those things individually for a few months, nothing was ever working. And it was too demoralizing. And I thought, you know what, it's not this. As a result of COVID, had an opportunity to sell and remove myself from the business, and I'm now a lot happier.
Yeah, no, I can imagine that. And please do share the poll. A surprising number of you'll have to read the results out as well, because I can't see them on my screen. But a surprising number of MSPs, where even when they do employ marketing agencies, and not some of the reputable channel specific ones, those guys are pretty good, but you go and hire a generic local marketing agency, they don't understand what their MSP is, they don't understand the business model, and as you say, Ben, they just go through a whole bunch of tactical stuff. They'll throw a new website at you, throw a brand refresh, they'll say, let's do some pay-per-click, let's do some SEO. What they're trying to hide is the fact they don't really understand the MSP model. So talk us through the
Yeah.
results. What have we got?
Well, you probably won't be at all surprised. 50% said terrible. It's actually less than I was expecting. 36% said okay, but only 7% said good and 7% said great. So
Yeah.
yeah, barely 10%, 1 in 10 think their marketing is good or great. And at least half think it's terrible.
Of course, you could argue this is a skewed poll, because why would you come and attend a webinar like this if your marketing was great, right? Unless you're one of those people who believes you can learn something from everywhere. In fact, that's the reason I read so many business books. Sometimes they're really bad books, but I guarantee every single book I read, I get at least one idea from. And hopefully we'll deliver a lot more than that in this webinar. Let's move on. I want to talk about, I pressed the wrong button. Where are we? There we go. I want to talk about, oh, hang on. There we go. No,
You
no,
can't blame
excuse me.
OpenReach for this.
I can't. Do you know what it is? It's the poll. The poll has got in the way of my little button box. Hello. I should explain. I've just spent several £1,000s setting up this amazing studio recording thing, and this was our first live webinar. And only now do we discover the problems. For example, launching a poll changes the window focus, and so the little button box I've got here, which remote controls the computer, it doesn't know to. Anyway, you get the idea. So it's all IT, isn't it? It's all technical things. Let's talk about the problems that most MSPs suffer from. They are a significant number of problems. And the first of them is that the people you're trying to sell to, the decision makers, they don't know what they don't know about technology. So they've got a phone, and maybe they've got an iPad, and of course they've got a laptop, and they believe that they know about technology, but fundamentally deep down they don't. The reason that they don't is because I think most people these days, unless they admit to being a complete Luddite, they believe that technology is so easy. I can use my phone. I can do this. I can send something from my phone to my television. How hard can it be? That's the kind of thing. And in fact, you as an MSP will know from talking to your clients and prospects that they don't know as much about technology as they think. Ask one of your favorite clients ask them what malware is. Ask them to explain a ransomware attack to you. Ask them to explain the cloud in a single sentence that makes sense to a 10-year-old. And they can't, because they don't really understand technology. So straight away, right off the bat, when we're doing marketing to, let's call them ordinary people, when we're doing marketing to ordinary people, ordinary business owners and managers, we're not coming at it from the same direction. You're kind of up here with your technology abilities, and they're down here. And one of the most dangerous things you can do actually is talk down to them. You can't do that. What you've got to do is you've got to bring yourself down to their level, so that you're having a conversation with them at their level. So if we assume they don't know what they don't know, that leads directly into, in fact, it directly causes the next problem, which is this: that they are making buying decisions with their hearts and not their brains. When we as people like to think, and especially as business owners, we like to think that we're being very Spock about our decisions. Spock, of course, being character from the original series of Star Trek. And Spock, as you may know, is half Vulcan, half human. And as a Vulcan, he tries to live his life as a Vulcan. He makes very logical decisions. So he tries not to let his emotions into any of his decision making. It's all based on facts and evidence. And that's how we believe, as ordinary people, how we believe we're making decisions. The reality is, however, when someone doesn't understand the thing that they're making a buying decision about, then they are physically incapable of making a Spock-style cognitive decision. So they delegate the decision down to their heart. And the heart makes decisions more like Captain Kirk does, much more emotional-based decisions. The brain and the heart are involved in all decisions to a certain extent. But when you've got what we call an uneducated audience, and the people who don't know what they don't know, they're an uneducated audience. Not being rude about them, but the ordinary people you sell to, they're uneducated about technology. So because they don't know what they don't know, they cannot make a cognitive decision. They think they are, but they physically cannot. It is impossible for them. Their heart is making the decision. Now, this is massive. right? If you can get this and you can drive all of your marketing on this principle, then it will change your marketing forever. Because the way that you influence the heart is completely different to the way that you influence the mind. The mind is influenced by facts, stats, accreditations, all those kind of things that, experience levels, all those kind of things that traditionally MSPs have put on their website. They put down how many tickets they've solved today, what 94.8% of tickets dealt with on the first inquiry. We're partnered up with Microsoft and Dell. We're accredited to the blah, blah, blah of whatever. Here's a badge of Cisco that you vaguely know what that is because they made the phones in the TV series 24 back in 2005. But, ordinary people don't know what that is anymore. So all of those kind of things which traditionally are used in marketing, unfortunately, they have no effect on the heart. They just affect the brain. What is it that influences the heart? Ben, I'm gonna drag you into this. You can't just sit there with your feet up, smoking a cigarette or whatever you're doing, and not while I'm doing all the work here. Ben, what affects the heart? If it's facts and sort of cold, hard, logical stuff that affects the brain, what affects the heart?
Gosh, I don't know. I feel like it's a trick question.
It's not a trick question.
I don't know, but I guess
okay. Let me ask you a scenario. Are you any good with cars? So
I was just about to use that example. Is when I walk into a car showroom, there is absolutely no logical, sane decision making going on in that process ever. It doesn't really matter what I know what I've walked in to buy. The concept of budget goes out the window. Once I've seen what I want to buy, I don't really care what it costs. I don't really care about consequential stuff. It becomes an incredibly emotionally driven purchase for me. And eventually, sometimes I come to regret them, sometimes I don't. But yes, there's a really good example of me buying with my heart is very much, when I go and buy cars.
Yep, that's a perfect example. So you've nailed it. You absolutely nailed it in one. And I'm very similar. So 0 to 60 speed doesn't affect us. Engine capacity doesn't affect us. How many miles you can drive it, and all of that kind of stuff doesn't affect us. If you're like me, Ben, I walk into a showroom and I go, "Oh, that's nice. Do you do it in red? I like that. That's big and it looks sexy. Can I have that in red, please?" And that's very much an emotional thing. And this is actually how ordinary people pick their MSP. They don't quite look at them and go, "They look sexy. Can I have that in red?" But they do look at them and say, well, they don't say this. They feel it. I like the look of this person. He or she feels right to me. And it's very much about feeling-based thing. Because remember, they don't know what an MSP does, how you do it. They don't know why you do it. They don't get it. Let's be honest. You could tell clients till you're blue in the face, and you do, why they need to buy more cybersecurity protection, why they need to, buy all these extra services from you, why this stuff is important, why proactive is better than reactive. And you could tell them every single day and it would never go in because it's not important. But what keeps them with you and what makes someone pick you or reject you as a new MSP is how they feel about you. So this has got to have a fundamental effect on our marketing. All those boring things I was talking about on the website, like accreditations and qualifications, don't matter. What matters more is photos of real people, you and your staff, videos of your clients talking about how much you've got their back, how great you are, how they can trust you, photos of the local area if you're geographically based, photos of the niche or the sector, the vertical if you're more vertical based, text that's not cold text talking about things that you do and services that you deliver, because no one cares about the services you deliver. They don't know what Azure is anyway. So instead, talk from one business owner to another business owner. And you can do that even if you're talking to the owner or the manager of a $50 million business. You can still talk from one business person to another business person. In fact, better, be the family business person. If you've got kids, make that a part of your marketing. If you are a big supporter of the local sports team, make that a part of your marketing. If you belong to the Rotary Club or you help out at Scouts or you do a cake sale every week, make that a part of your marketing. People buy from people. And in managed services, uniquely compared to lots of different technology, because there's no dominant brand in the MSP world, they are buying you based on whether they like you or not. And if you're not winning sales, if you're getting appointments and you're not winning sales, it's because you aren't selling yourself enough. And ironically, you selling yourself is about talking about yourself less and talking about more about them. But we'll come on to that as we go down the line. Now, this leads on to our third problem, which is the double-edged sword I was mentioning earlier. And it's a double-edged sword called inertia loyalty. Now, inertia loyalty could be put another way, which is better the devil you know. People feel, and again, this is a feeling, not a hard brain thing. People feel as though it's safer and easier to stay with someone that perhaps they know them even if they're not overly happy with them. They feel it's safer to stay with them than it is to move over to someone new, which is you. So maybe you've had this scenario, lots of MSPs have, where you've sat down with a prospect, you've talked about their business, you've done a proposal, they love the proposal, the price is right, the package is right, everything is right. And as you're sitting there one day thinking about them, thinking, they really don't like their incumbent MSP. I know they're very unhappy with them. And then the phone rings and it's this prospect and they say, oh, we just signed a new 12-month deal. We're going to give our old MSP another chance. And you think, well, this is insane because you've been giving them another chance for 3 years on the road now. What's stopping them moving is inertia loyalty. It feels safer to stay with someone they know, even if they're unhappy with them, than it is to switch to you. And this is why one of the things that I'm going to suggest as part of your marketing strategy is that you build a relationship with people before you start asking them to buy things from you. Because how can someone make an emotional decision about you, about buying from you, if they don't know you? They can't. So we need to go and build a relationship with them. And then the fourth and final problem we have is that people only buy when they are ready to buy. If you look at the entire marketplace right now, and you think of all the businesses in your town or your niche or your vertical, only 3% of those people are even vaguely ready to have a sales conversation. 3%. And some of those are starting to think about it. Some of those are ready, willing, and able to switch. That's almost too late to start the conversation with them. Some of them are well past the point and they're deeply frustrated, but they're already, doing the beauty parade of talking to other MSPs. But at any one point, you can assume only 3% of your marketplace is even in the sales zone. The other 97% are nowhere near the sales zone. And unlike many other things, there are lots of things that you can force a sale, and you can use gimmicks and marketing and all sorts of cool things to try and force a sale. Today, in managed services, you can't force the sale until they're ready. Because they don't understand it, because it scares them, because they know that actually if it goes wrong, it will completely obliterate their business. And of course, there's that trust thing. They are terrified of making a bad mistake. If they change from their current CPA, their current accountant, to a new CPA, and it all goes wrong, they could always switch a year later. So they have bad accounts for a year, the new accountant can fix that. If they switch from one lawyer to another and they don't like the new lawyer, they can always go back to the old lawyer, or they can do something else. All of those things are fixable. But if they switch from an MSP to you and you screw everything up and you lose their data and it all goes horribly wrong, there's no business left. And they may not be able to express that verbally, but they feel that very deeply inside. And that's why that's why we have inertia loyalty, and it's why people slow down the sales process. I've never seen, and I've worked with dozens and dozens of different sectors over about 20 years, and I've never seen a sector where the sales process is so slow. It's so slow, and then it speeds up right towards the end. And you have, I'm guessing, somewhere between one chance and somewhere between every 5 to 7 years. So a client who's with their incumbent MSP right now will only switch on average every 5 to 7 years. Now, as I say, that actually works to your benefit as well, because there's a proportion of your clients who are with you through inertia loyalty, and because it's too much hassle to switch. If you've only got like 4 or 5 clients, then they're all super happy and they love you and you're servicing them well. But once you start growing the business and you get to 15, 20, 25 clients, And particularly as you start bringing on, new people and you hiring account managers to look after them, there's always a bit of a lag, and there's always in any business a client that isn't quite as happy as you would want them to be. But what keeps those people and why they'll be with you for another 3 to 4 years is all of these problems that we've just talked about. They're very much a double-edged sword. Let's talk about what the strategy is. So there's a very simple 3-step marketing strategy that I'm going to give you sort of the overview of the 3 steps, and then we're going to dive into some detail in each of the steps. So let me show you the strategy. Oh, Ben, I've got to go and press the button on the screen again.
What have I done this time?
Okay. It wasn't you, actually. I don't know what happened then. It's something, my computer did something, but hopefully when I press this button here, ping, there we go. So the first of the 3-step marketing strategy is this. You need to go and build yourself multiple audiences of people to listen to you. And we're going to go into some details in a second about exactly how you would do that. The next step is that you would build a relationship with those people. And again, that's done through content marketing. We'll talk in a second about how you do that. And then the third step is to commercialize that relationship. And the way that we commercialize that relationship is actually done by having a fairly intense interaction with them. Again, we'll cover that off towards the end. But let's look in more detail at how we build multiple audiences. And when we talk about building multiple audiences, there are dozens of things that you could do, but for most MSPs, these are the 2 audiences to focus on. It's building your LinkedIn and it's building your email database. And if actually, and when we talk about LinkedIn, your email database, those 2 things can and should be connected. And I'm going to give you some guidance on that in a second. Before we do, let's move on to a poll. And Ben, if you want to launch that poll, and I just had an idea, I'm going to bring my Bluetooth keyboard over here. So that will allow me to switch between applications there. See what I did there? Technology, it's very clever. So Ben has just launched the poll. And what we want to know is how many connections do you have with business owners, managers on LinkedIn? So what we're not interested in is, I'm just going to get my mouse as well. What we're not interested in, I promise I have done this before and it's a lot more professional. What we're not interested in is how many other MSPs you're connected to or how many vendors or anything like that. What we're only really interested in is normal people that could go on to do business with you in some way. How many connections have you got, Ben?
Oh, God knows.
I'm ready for the results, yeah.
I get a lot of junk connections though. Well, it's weird. I guess my connections are slightly different. I get a lot of junky ones, I think, because I've got I invest in a couple of SaaS products as well, sort of MSP SaaS products. So people see me as an investor, and therefore I get a load of crap from totally pointless SaaS startups looking for investors. And then the other is loads of sort of Momentum customers. I think a lot of people, I'm not complaining about it, but once we've maybe had a conversation or whatever, I've helped them with something, quite often it'll then follow up with a connection request. So I think there's quite a lot, like a few thousand. But would any of them, if I started a new business, I don't know if any of them, how many would necessarily be relevant in this context. It looks like almost everyone's
not that many. In fact,
Sorry, go on.
Cool. So let's have the results from that. No, it's okay. Do you want to read us the results?
Yeah, I think we've got a little bit of lag on you. You've gone slightly frosted looking, and I think there's a bit of a delay. You're back. You're in full terrifying HD. So the results, we've had just under 50% have said 0 to 500, about a third have said 500 to 1,000, and then a very small minority, like under 10%, have said 1,000 to 2,000, and under 10% have said 2,000 plus.
Okay.
So it's kind of even. Everyone's got up to 1,000 basically.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So, marketing to a certain extent is a numbers game, and the goal is to get your numbers as high as you can, but they've got to be quality connections, and we'll talk about how to build those connections in a second. But it's interesting, Ben, you saying about you've got a LinkedIn that's mixed between Momentum clients that you've helped out, and then other things. And I actually have two LinkedIns, two completely separate LinkedIns. So I have a general LinkedIn, which because I do dabble with things on the side, the same as you do, and that's where all my nonsense stuff goes. And then I have a very MSP specific one, and that's only connecting Ps or important vendors. I think you and I are connected, aren't we? Because you're an important vendor. But I ignore the 10 connection requests a day. I ignore the 10 connection requests a day from virtual assistants, accountants, people that want to, rewrite my website or do my SEO, all of that kind of nonsense. So I think that's one of the things with your LinkedIn is you've got to be very, very focused on the people that you're trying to connect with.
With hindsight, I think a lot of the people I'm connected with, I should probably go through a bit of a cull and tidy them up.
Yeah, or just start a second account. That's a nice clean way of doing it. And actually, that's what I recommend to MSPs who, particularly where you've got, and it's quite often these days, you'll get someone who is happy taking local business connected to local business owners, but also they've got a very specific niche or a vertical. And the answer to that is two LinkedIns. And you can do that as two separate people, or you could just have two separate accounts and do what I do, which is you have two separate photos so you know which LinkedIn your account you're on. It's technically against LinkedIn's terms, but I've logged into each account separately on one account, and I haven't had a problem with that at all. So that's not necessarily saying that's best practice, but LinkedIn seemed to tolerate that. And in fact, these days I think on LinkedIn, was it on Facebook? On Facebook, they now allow you to switch accounts fairly easily. So it's almost like social media platforms are starting to accept and are becoming more accepting of the fact that many of us have multiple profiles for multiple things. So we're talking about building your audiences. And as I say, there are two core audiences that MSPs should build. The first of those is LinkedIn. You should be aiming to make 10 new connections a day. And the reason that's a very specific number is because not last year, the year before, LinkedIn changed. So LinkedIn started originally as the online record of your offline connections, and then it kind of entered its phase 2 when Microsoft acquired it. And Microsoft have actually been great guardians of LinkedIn, and they've made it a very impressive tool. And but it was a free-for-all. Do you remember for a number of years it was just a free-for-all? You could connect to anybody and everybody. And then around about 18 months, 20 odd months ago, they changed the rules and it became much more about quality. So you can still connect to anybody, but now you don't want to be attempting to connect with more than 10 people a day. The trick with this is to turn it into a daily system. So not you, get someone else to do this for you. Get a virtual assistant to do this, which is you just attempt 10 connection requests every single day. And if you do that 5-6 days a week, or you get a VA to do it for you 5-6 days a week, then that is, you just build your connections very nicely over a period of time. Obviously, not all 10 of those people are going to accept your connection requests, but even if you get 2 a day, that turns into 10 new connections a week, if you were to look at it that way. Now, the clever way is in terms of who to target, is to ask yourself who already has your audience. So you could sit there and say, right, who are all the accountants in my city? Who are the lawyers? Who are the manufacturers? You could go and buy data. You could put in, you could go and search for people. You could just do Google searches. Or typically the easiest way is to say who's already got my connections or who's already got the connections that I want. Let's say, for example, I'll give you an example. I'm live just outside a city called Milton Keynes here in the UK. And I don't know this guy, but there is a guy in the city called Mark Orr, who is the most connected guy in Milton Keynes. He runs a lot of the networking groups, and he's connected to everybody. So if you wanted to reach a business owner in Milton Keynes, they're probably connected to Mark Orr. If I wanted connections in Milton Keynes, I would connect to Mark Orr, and then I would start connecting to his connections, if that makes sense. Now, there is a way that you could hide it. If you want to stop people doing this to you, just go and Google how you hide your connections. But most people don't do that. So you could argue it was slightly immoral to do something like that. I would just say that, someone else has done the hard work for you. You don't have to connect all of their connections, but you might pick and choose which are their connections. The other place you can look is LinkedIn groups. No one really uses LinkedIn groups, but they join them. So I know for a fact that there's a business Business Owners Milton Keynes group, which has got a couple of thousand people in. That's a good place to look as well. And again, just constantly ask yourself the question, who's got the connections I want? If you connect to another business owner in your city, go and look at their connections, see who else they're connected to. Just don't connect to all of their connections. Pick out the relevant ones of people who could go on to become clients of yours. The other thing with LinkedIn is you can do some automation still, but you need to use extreme care. So there are various automated tools around. I have used in the past one called Dux Soup, DUX-soup, as in soup that you drink. We've stopped using it actually when LinkedIn made that change and went away from the quantity towards the quality route. We stopped using the automation tools, but you can still use them. The trick with those is to do exactly what the automation tools tell you. Because what happens is these actually act as plugins to your instance of Chrome on your laptop. And that's why LinkedIn can't block them, because they're not coming from one IP address. They're coming from your IP address on your Chrome, and they actually replicate human behavior. So if, for example, you're getting DuckSoup to do you 10 connections a day, it will do it as slowly as a human will do it. The beauty is, of course, that you don't have to do it, or a VA doesn't have to do it. So you can still use these automation tools. If you've got cash to pay a human to do it, or you want to do it yourself, that's always better than... This is one of those few instances where automation isn't the better answer. And I'm sure LinkedIn has a team of people sat in a room somewhere trying to figure out how to block these automation tools. Because, of course, I'm sure LinkedIn is also working on its own automation tools that it wants to sell to you as part of a subscription down the line. So with LinkedIn, we want to do 10 connections a day. The other database I recommend you build is your email database. And your email database starts with you asking yourself the question of what data do you already have? So often I'll start talking to people who've just joined the MSP Marketing Edge, and I'll be explaining some of this to them, and they'll say, well, we don't have an email database, but they've been in business for 10 years. So I get them to do the equivalent of putting their hand down the back of the data couch. And I say to them, right, go into your Outlook, go and look up every prospect, every previous customer, every break-fix customer, everyone you've ever spoken to on email, or you've put in your notebook, or you've had a BNI referral slip or anything. Go and look through the drawers for business cards. Go and find everyone that you've ever spoken to. And if they didn't become a client, if they're not a client now, then you get their email address and you pull all that together. And most businesses will find 200 or 300 email addresses just like that. Now, the next thing you do is you put them in a CRM and you just start emailing them. The first email you'd send to them would be one which says, hey, we've spoken in the past. I've started a new email newsletter. I hope you don't mind I've added you onto it. If you really don't want it, there's an unsubscription link below. P.S. Next week, I'm going to email you about, and you insert something interesting there. And that sidesteps the whole that they didn't give you explicit permission to do it. I think all the anti-spam laws, and there are lots of them around the world, they're not really aimed at people like you and me that are emailing 300 people a week, once a week with an email newsletter. We know who they're aimed at. They're aimed at the mass offenders that are sending out millions of emails a day. The exception to this is Canada, where there are many exceptions in Canada, but I know the email spam laws in Canada are quite strict, and you will get killed by a Mountie if you send one email to the wrong person. I am joking. Although I don't know if you knew this, Ben, as an aside. Did you know there was a law in Canada passed which has started recently, where something to do with Canadian content from websites outside Canada cannot now be seen in platforms like Facebook. So if someone in Canada, or if you post something on Facebook and a connection of yours in Canada looks at it and it's like a UK or a US link, they actually won't be able to see the link. It says this content is not available in Canada, but that's by the by.
Didn't know that.
So just start with the data that you've already got. No, it's something I only found out last week as well. So start with the data that you've already got, and then you want to build on that data. Now, the easy way to do this, there's hundreds of ways to build your email database. The easy way is to add your new connections from LinkedIn. So those 2 people a day on average that you're connecting to on LinkedIn, 10 connection requests, on average 2 people accepting them. Grab their email addresses, which is super easy to do. You either get a plugin, what's it called? Hunter, is it Hunter? Hunter.io is one. There's another one that I can't remember, or you just Google it. For example, if you connect with John Smith at Badger Group, and their domain name is at badgergroup.com, you can just email in speech marks john.smith@badgergroup.com. Then if that doesn't produce anything, j.smith, jsmith, john s, john.s, john at, there's only a certain number of standard email addresses that you go through. But what you'll find is if someone's had an email address for more than 5 minutes, the second you email that address in speech marks and there's an exact hit on it, Google will come up with a series of results. So that's how you can find out someone's email. Or as I say, on Hunter and whatever the other one is, it's $1 per email reveal. You pick whichever, if you've got more cash, you go for that. If you've got less cash, more time, then you go for the manual method. But again, pop those email addresses into your CRM. You're adding, sort of 4, 5, 6 a week. It's not a problem to be adding those into the CRM. Just make sure the first email you send out is that one which tells them, hi, we've just connected on LinkedIn. Hope you don't mind. I've added you to my email newsletter. If you'd rather not get these emails, just unsubscribe. And then the final thing with building your email database is just to systemize all of your lead content. So anytime you speak to a human who could go on to become a client in any way, someone who could go on to become a client, you systematically get their email address, in fact, the email address of all decision makers and influencers, and you put those into your CRM and you make it systematic. So every networking meeting, every conversation on the phone, every form that someone fills in, it's almost a way of thinking is we've got to get their email address. Because remember, what we're trying to do is we're trying to build multiple audiences of people so that we can go on and build a relationship with them. Now, building a relationship is this is the long-term one. So building up your audiences is a set of small tasks that happen on a regular basis. The building the relationship is the ongoing thing that almost never stops. What we're trying to do is we're trying to mix together education and entertainment through our content marketing. And we're going to do that on LinkedIn and email, and we're actually going to do something offline as well. When we put these things together, we end up with something called edutainment. See what we did there? And it's actually the perfect word because technology is kind of boring. Not for us. I know that you're rubbing your thighs at the thought of the latest, Windows 11 patch 74. Can't wait for that one. But actually, ordinary people, they're not. This stuff doesn't work for them like that. They find technology a little bit boring. So we have to, yes, educate them, but also we've got to make it fun for them, and that's where edutainment comes from. Now, I believe the most robust marketing is where you're doing systems, not where you do one-off tasks. It's why I'm not a big fan of marketing campaigns because they tend to be big, expensive, difficult, time-consuming one-off tasks. I prefer systems where you're doing regular jobs on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. And actually, this building a relationship with your audience through content marketing is perfect for this kind of system. So, for example, on a daily basis, you should be posting on social media. LinkedIn, Facebook, if you're on Facebook, Instagram, X or Twitter as it used to be called, Threads, whichever of the apps you use, post your social media on a daily basis. And yes, I mean 7 days a week. On a weekly basis, you should be sending out an educational email to people. So that's the people on your email database. And when we say educational, it's not a sales email. Teach them about something about technology or security, but make it fun. Make it fun for them to learn. Quick pro tip on this one, and this we've built an entire marketing system around this. When you send out the email, you don't want to just send people an email that they read and then they sort of go on to the next email. In an ideal world, you send them out an email and the email is a tease of the full story. And to get the full story, they have to click the link. And when they click the link, they go to your website and there's a blog. So for example, we would say we do this in the MSP Marketing Edge. So every Thursday, we give all of our members a blog and a video about the same subject. So we have some lovely female presenters that present our videos. So I don't know what this week's subject is. I only approved it this morning, but anyway, it doesn't matter what it is. Let's say it's about password managers. So let's say you've got a blog about password managers. You've got a video on the same subject. You put those on your website on a blog page. Then you send out the email, and the email teases them with something that makes them feel like they want to click through and read about that. And then when they click through, it's just so many benefits, because they're on your website, which is good, because when they're on your website, they may then drift off to the About Us page, they might drift to the Contact Us page, they might do live chat with you, they might book a 15-minute Zoom call. But also, you now know, you can look in your CRM and you can see who is active and who has clicked through. And I know that that is not a precise science, particularly with email scanners that click links to pre-scan links, but it gives you a vague idea of who is actually opening emails and clicking through. And I'm guessing that there's going to be a question that comes up about what's a great click-through rate or what's a great open rate. I can give stats for that. I try not to, because people get obsessed over them. The reality is you've got 5 years to build a relationship. Someone who joins your list today, joins your email list today, might not buy from you for 5 years. You've got 5 years to build a relationship with them. And you've got to think, I've got to send out 260 emails in the next 5 years, one a week for the next 5 years, until the point that person is ready, willing, and able to have a conversation with me about me potentially taking over their technology. So you mustn't look at it as, oh, we only had a 10% open rate on that email. We only had a 30% click-through rate. That's the wrong way of looking at it. What you're looking at is, how can I build the relationship over the next 5 years or so? So we send out an educational email on a weekly basis, and then monthly we do something offline, because offline marketing is epic because there's so much noise. There's noise everywhere. So we can't compete with all that digital noise. So what we can do is we can compete on a platform where there isn't much noise, and that's the post. That's stuff that turns up. We give our MSP Marketing Edge members a printed newsletter. Yeah, sure, please do.
Yeah, your network bandwidth has been saying it's low for the last couple of minutes, and it's compressed you into a teeny tiny box in the middle of the screen. And I wonder if OpenReach aside, there's anything you're able to do to resolve that.
No, not me. Oh, I see. Yes. Apart from resetting my router, which would be a 7-8 minute interruption. But if you wanted me to, I can do.
No, it's fine. Just be conscious your screen is now, it's much smaller. We can see the big text though. It's fine. We can't see you move as much.
Okay, that's cool. As long as you can see the big text. You don't need
Michelle. Michelle's jumped in with a couple of questions. She said a couple of questions. How to reignite weekly emails when busy, and what about using LinkedIn newsletters? I'm not entirely sure I understand the first question about how to reignite weekly emails. No, I don't. When busy. When who's busy? Yes. When you're busy or when you're
Michelle, busy? Can you clarify that first question? Correct. Yeah, Michelle, can you clarify that first question? Let me answer the second one, which is LinkedIn newsletters are gorgeous. And actually, that same blog that we were just talking about that you put on your website and you email people to get them onto your website, you can reuse that blog on a LinkedIn newsletter. And LinkedIn newsletters are... The reason they're beautiful is algorithmically LinkedIn loves its own newsletters. So they're created when you do an article. Well, you have to set your newsletter up from scratch. You can Google it how to do it. They're created when you create an article on your LinkedIn, and then it not only puts the newsletter in front of your connections, it also emails them a copy. So LinkedIn is emailing your LinkedIn connections on your behalf. And that is gorgeous. Mwah! Big kiss to LinkedIn for doing that. So yes, Michelle, please do LinkedIn newsletters. One thing to remember though, is with LinkedIn best practice.
Sorry. I think she's just clarified. So if I used to email on a weekly basis and then got super busy with delivery and no marketing person on board, so the weekly emails drop off. I guess sort of how do you reinvigorate those weekly emails? I mean, I guess there's two ways.
Just get started again.
Yeah, but I guess the question's perhaps a bit more, do you need to sort of re-warm people up in any way, or do you just start as though you never stopped? I'd be inclined to just start as though you never stopped.
Yeah, I agree. Just start as though you'd never stopped, because they're not sitting there, Michelle, with tears in their eyes saying, why isn't Michelle emailing me anymore? She doesn't love me. The reality is they never noticed. And actually, all joking aside, irregular emailing is one of the biggest causes of mass unsubscriptions. So I had an email this morning from an olive oil company called Philippe Burrito or someone like that, and I thought, why have I had an email from them? And then I remembered I entered a competition on the label of the bottle 3 years ago, and it's like they've not emailed me since then. So of course I then unsubscribed because they sent me some stupid email about some offers on olive oil. Whereas had they sent me regular cooking tips or regular something else, I'd be less likely to unsubscribe. So yeah, don't overthink it. Just get started, Michelle, and that's how you can do that. Ben, I'm just going to quickly whiz through the last 2 minutes of this. Just so that we can then I can try and fix our internet just as we handle the questions. So just one final thought on relationship building, which is it only ends when someone buys from you, or they die, or they say to you bye-bye, which is that unsubscription. And, you know, I joked about sending out 260 emails over 260 weeks, but actually that's relationship building. And up till the day you either sell the business or you die, or you know you retire from the business or whatever, you keep that relationship building going, because people only buy when they're ready to buy, and you've got to make sure that it's your MSP and none of your competitors that's in front of them. The MSPs I've been working with for 5+ years who do this stuff, and they've turned this into a system, and they systematically do this day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out. Those are the ones that right now, you know, even with relatively low activity levels, they get the best results because they've been doing it for years and years and years, and they have other people doing it for them. And by other people, I don't mean agencies, I mean virtual assistants or members of their own staff. So it just happens on a systematic basis, and that's what makes it very reliable. Final step then is to commercialize the relationship that you've been building. And there's a very, very simple way of doing that, which is you go and hire yourself someone, preferably a back-to-work mum, who is going to phone people on your behalf. Now, she's not doing any selling. Her job is to phone everyone on your LinkedIn connections, everyone that is in your email base, and to essentially to warm them up, just engage with them and try to find out if we are anywhere near the time being right. So it's a 5-minute phone call. She's got to get past the gatekeeper. She's got to ask them some open questions about their favorite subject, which is themselves and their business. And then she might ask them something like, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is awful and 10 is amazing, how would you rank your current IT support partner? And, you know, if someone answers 10, 9, 8, just move on. There's no sale there, and there may not be for a number of years. But 7 or under, there's some level of potential sale there. Obviously, if they answer 4 or 3, then there's some serious distress there. So it's worth doing it. But her job is not to then sell the business or sell your business or your services. Her job is, once she's made that call, is simply to book them in with a 15-minute video call with you or whoever's doing the selling within your business. So she doesn't need to know much about technology. She doesn't need to know much about your company. She's simply ringing your databases on your behalf so that she can find those people who are nearly ready, willing, and able to buy, and she can then book them in a video call with you. And that, in about a 25-minute nutshell, is the 3-step marketing strategy that I recommend.
Paul, and with that, your video has returned halfway to normal. It's back to full size. It's just a little bit pixelated, but we can see you smiling. Thank you very much for that. I always learn a lot when you're rattling through you're always very engaging presentations. I remember listening to you speak at Super Ops, and it's a whole other level of energy to try and contend with, but it definitely keeps you awake. Michelle, really helpful. Thanks, Paul. I don't know if anyone else has got any questions they want to ask Paul while he's here. Either chuck them on the Q&A or in the chat is absolutely fine.
And I'm happy to answer questions about any marketing subject as well. It doesn't have to be stuff that we've talked about here today.
Seemingly not, though. So it might be a case of letting the Brits get on with their evening a few minutes early. The Americans get on with their day a few minutes early. Have you got a slide with some contact details? Oh, we've got someone's popped their hand up. Abhay. And I guess we could try this allow to talk if he or she wants to.
Oh, let's do it.
There we go.
Yeah.
We've added you into the call. If you maybe turn your camera on and
Hello.
hello.
Hey, hi. It was really lovely presentation. I mean, I really love the webinar. So I'm basically from India, and we are a Singapore-based MSP. We are serving the clients on a global, like at the global level. So we have some European clients as well. We have some APAC clients as well. And if we talk about the North American region, we do have some of the client base out there as well. Now, we are at the stage of expanding our portfolio. Initially, the clients which we got them through our personal connects, right? So our CEO's connects were there. That's why we got those clients. Now, whenever, when I signed up for this webinar, so it says, right, how to find out or how to reach the decision maker when it's the time for them to buy, right? So this is something, which I'm still not sure of, because I got the whole point, and I really, I could relate our strategies as well. So I really got very, motivated that, okay, I'm on the right track right now. But I still need to know that how to find out whether someone is really ready to buy. That's something, right? We have the qualifier question. We always have it. So would you like to throw some light on this one?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to. So I think it was the very last bit which I rattled off in about 30 seconds, so it was very easy to miss. Which is where I said about getting someone to work the phones for you. So when if we've built up
I
multiple
really
audiences of
appreciate
people to
that.
listen to, and then we've built up a relationship with them. And then you get someone, and I always recommend a back to work mom, but it can be anybody, someone to just work the phones. Now, there's a difference. This is not cold calling. I'm not a fan of cold calling. No one likes cold calling. The only people that enjoy cold calling are those who are desperate for cash. What we're recommending is warm calling. And that's what this is, because we know who these people are. You've got a connection to them, either on LinkedIn or email. It's a very low level connection. It's a very low level relationship. But the point is that you have a connection to them. There are actually some very clever things you can do to make that call easier. For example, you might send them a letter, physically send it to them in the post, and then your phone person is following up that letter. That can actually be more
Well,
motivational for the phone person
sorry to
than
interrupt on
anyone
this
else.
call. I'm so sorry to interrupt you on this one. Well, like you said, reaching out to them personally. So I also, had a call with many MSP marketing agency. I spoke to ABM Stars. You must have heard about them, right? So it's kind of a popular one in United Kingdom. So they made, a customized goodies for them to send them up, and they have, different packages. So like, would you suggest me to go for such things? Like, does it make difference?
So I missed the name of the agency, and actually
ABM
I wouldn't
Stars.
ever give my
It's
views
Alpha
on.
Bravo
Oh,
Mike
okay,
Star.
so I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wouldn't. Not actually a name I've heard of, but I wouldn't give my view on any other business on a live webinar, because we would all not want to hear our business being spoken about. So I can't recommend that you should go with one or another. I think the general principle is there are lots of different ways. What we've talked about here is gathering a bunch of people together, building up a relationship with them emotionally, and then we hit the phones, or there's a number of other things we could do to try to find whether or not now is the right time. Whether you go with an agency to do this or not, that's a choice you have to make. I would say huge caveat, which is there are some very good agencies and there are some terrible agencies, and you certainly want an agency that actually knows the MSP space, not that has spotted, oh, there's lots of IT people around, let's say we're an MSP marketing agency. So there are some again, I'm not going to name names, because then people think it's a recommendation, which it's not. But if it's a name that you've been hearing for a number of years, and they already have 5 or 10 MSP clients, then they're in this world, right? And you can ask to speak to 1 or 2 of their existing clients. I think otherwise, I personally recommend it's often better to put together your own marketing than it is to just go and rely on an agency. Half the problem with hiring an agency is MSP owners delegate the responsibility for marketing to the agency. And actually, it's not their responsibility, it retains your responsibility. So I haven't quite answered your question there, but I know we've got to stop there for time. So I hope that's given you some answer. And you've got my email address, it's up here on the screen. So if you've got a follow-up, please do drop me an email and I'll see if I can help you.
It's actually not on the screen because it's too pixelated to read. So if you'd like to read out your email,
I'll just read it out, which is hello@paulgreensmspmarketing.com.
Cool. And if you want to find out more about the Zementum platform, you can go to zementum.com/demo. If you need to get hold of me for any reason, ben@zementum.com. Thank you very much, Paul, for an enlightening presentation. Thank you to everyone from across the world for joining us.